fantastic group. And there's some new people that I don't know that we don't know. And there's Lori Fry and Dr. G and Barbara and Trish O'Hare, Stephen. So nice
Steve
to have you.
Saffold.
Stephen Saffold. So nice to see you. This is a very synergistic group here because everyone is really looking at growth, function, development. And the reason why I thought it would be such a great opportunity to talk about, these different organizations is how synergistic we are. So I'm going to have Brian Hockel talk about AAGO. But the reason why we are here today is this really cool issue that you all put together with a spotlight on myofunctional therapy, which is so, I'm kind of wondering if the word is, beyond synergistic, but a tribute of recognizing how we work together. And so 4 of us wrote an article each. Barbara Green, Narissa Bogon, I wrote an article, and Joy Moeller. And we really will go into it. We'll share with you what that looks like. And beyond that, I also wanted to kind of understand AAGO. And I think some people even have questions about the Crozat and its origin and how it's similar to other appliances. So we have a lot to talk about. But I want to introduce Brian Hockel, who among, well, I kind of feel like you're my band member now.
It's so true. I think about coming on this with Samantha, and my first thought is not as much myofunctional therapy or the whole collaboration we have in the professional side, but it's all right, it's my bandmate. Yeah, we were just together in St. Louis for a few days, and it's very intense being in that band and learning to collaborate because we've got some really varied personalities and approaches. And I mean, truthfully, it's continually a test of whether we can tolerate and work with each other, but the result ends up being a lot of fun. And if you want to hear us, we're going to be at the Airway Palooza that Lauren Gates is putting on in Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, September 17th and 18th. So I'm sure that we can figure out a way to get you some kind of a promotional code for that. So look that up. If you don't go for any other reason, just come to hear the band on Friday night because it's going to be a lot of fun.
Really fun. We're on the beach. And it's an opportunity to listen to all those songs that you might have forgotten about. We're pulling them out so we can dance and move together. It's super fun.
And we got a bunch of new stuff too. That's been a lot of fun for us. But so yeah, that's the band. The AAGO it dates back to 1970. It began with a group called the Wiebrecht Foundation. Bert Wiebrecht was a general dentist in Milwaukee who went down to New Orleans every year to study for a week with George Crozat and learn about this removable wire appliance that Crozat had developed from the works of other people before him. But he was the one that really got its name after him. He was an orthodontist, but he didn't really teach it a whole lot. It was Bert Wiebrecht from Milwaukee, this like kind of feisty German guy that went around the country teaching to general dentists, largely orthodontists as well. But he was the one that really kind of opened the door to general dentists doing orthodontics. And this was at a time when there a lot of extractions were going on. So he was looking at the state of orthodontics, and he was also getting to know the nathologists from Southern California who were very into occlusion. And they saw that the extraction cases that were being done messed up the occlusion, it messed up people's faces, and they wanted an alternative. And the Crozat became this way to develop the potential of the dental arches to make room for teeth, to deal with crowding in a more holistic way. So that was in the mid 60s. 1970, it became the American Academy of Nathologic Orthopedics. So this influence of nathology and it was in the name. And through the 70s and 80s, they developed a series of sessions to teach this technique based on courses that my dad and some others were teaching at the time. And there were 4 solid sessions, one on diagnostics, one on Crozats, one on functional appliances, and one on fixed appliances, braces. And and we're talking like in the 80s was when it really became solidified. In the 90s, that was kind of my introduction to orthodontics, was taking those 4 courses. And then as time went on, we saw the need to add additional courses. And on this Zoom right now, well, Steve Saffel, I don't know how often Steve is on it, but Steve Saffel was one of the original teachers of the course on the Crozats. And Steve, by the way, I'm in Sacramento right now. But
Oh,
and then we found the need because as people learned the Crozat method, it became this kind of central way of thinking that branched out into so many different areas that were more holistic and more whole body oriented than so many of the other orthodontic approaches. And so the integration of nutrition, of cranial osteopathy, of myofunctional therapy, and in addition to looking at what were the orthodontists doing, let's look at cephalometrics, let's look at how we can take what they're doing and do it in a better way. So Derek Nordstrom's one of those people that looked at the wire appliance and said, hey, I can do things with this that are good for the cranial mechanism and from an osteopathic standpoint. And he developed the ALF as an offshoot of the Crozat. And so also on this Zoom, we have Yuba Lemke, who is the instructor for the session on the ALF appliance that is taught through the AAGO. So if you know people that want to get interested in learning the ALF, Yuba has a brilliant German-trained mind that is excellent to learn from, and that isn't always the case when you learn ALF treatment. So anyway, Yuba is on this. Darin Ward hopefully will be on it. Darin and I, some years ago, about 12 years ago, took the AAGO courses, and we look at the things we were learning from Bill Hang and John Mew, which were all about the airway and doing some things that were even beyond what AAGO was doing. Even though AAGO had John Mew teaching us back in the 80s, several AAGO members tried to learn what he was doing and kind of fell flat because, frankly, he wasn't a brilliant teacher. He was a brilliant practitioner, got amazing results, but people didn't really find it easy to learn from him. When Bill Hang taught what John Mew was doing, many of us were able to learn it and do it, and still are. But we decided that the AAGO sessions needed to be better informed by airway and myofunctional issues, specifically oral posture and the influence of the oral muscular system on everything that we do orthopedically and orthodontically. So we revamped the 4 courses, the 4 core courses, and the two of us taught 3 of the 4 of those. We have other instructors that are also on board. And it's been a great place for a lot of doctors to start. Between that and Bill Hang's ECHO and ERS mentorships, I think those are a great way for any doctor to really get into orthodontics and get the basics under their belt. But as a part of the AAGO, in the 60s, they put out this newsletter. It was this kind of it was literally done on a typewriter called the Bandolette, I think was the first version of it. The second version of it was the Crozat Courier. It was basically like a church bulletin. It was like so and so in this area is doing this, and they didn't really involve case reports or a lot of serious material. But as it developed, and eventually as my dad became the editor of it, I don't know how many years ago. He's been the editor forever, and he turned 92 last month, and he's still the editor of it. But as he took it over, we got more and more case reports of different types of things that AAGO practitioners were doing. And it runs the gamut. I mean, it's a massive collection of journals that goes back a long way. If you're a member of the AAGO, you have access to all these journals. And you could go to the journal section of the website and just type in Steve Saffold, and you'll get any articles where Steve Saffold was mentioned in the title of the article. And he has case reports that he published on the Crozat, and you can see some of those case reports. And so we also, in addition to revamping the AAGO sessions, the educational sessions, Darin and I felt it was time to push for a change in the name of the AAGO. And so we renamed it from the American Academy of Nathologic Orthopedics to the Academy of Airway and Nathologic Orthopedics, just to incorporate that whole airway element. I was the lone board member that voted to get rid of the name Nathologic, even though I probably, was in the top two in terms of my background with nathology. I'd studied a lot and practiced a lot, so I knew the value of it. But anyway, I got outvoted. It's the Academy of Airway and Nathologic Orthopedics. Then, just a long history of this year, we had an organization that was formed for the purpose of promoting orthotropics, thanks to all the people that learned it from Bill Hang. That was the North American Association for Facial Orthotropics and the NAAFO. But there was so much overlap between the two organizations that at one point we just decided to merge them. And all the members of the orthotropic group kind of came into the AAGO, and it became one organization. And we named the Journal of Airway and Nathologic Orthopedics and Facial Orthotropics, something crazy like that.
Wow, that sounds like a myofunctional exercise.
It could be. Yeah, so I don't remember the exact title of it right now. But I don't know if you'll let me share the screen, Samantha. Is that
Absolutely.
okay if I do that?
Yes.
Okay, so here is a sneak preview behind the scenes of the journal that's about to come out, the September issue. Okay, it's called the Journal of the Academy of Airway and Nathologic Orthopedics, dedicated to advancing airway orthodontics, Crozat Alf orthopedics, and facial orthotropics. So there's no other journal out there that publishes cases, orthotropic cases, and cases like what we do. And so my dad got the idea. I'm not sure where it came from, but he had the idea to have an issue that would really focus on myofunctional therapy. And this is a gem. Narissa texted me earlier this morning and asked, has the AAGO ever published a myofunctional case? And I honestly don't know the answer to that. It's been mentioned and talked about and promoted all through the years. There was a whole chapter on it, my dad's book that Quintessence published in 1981, written by Bill Zickafoos. But I don't know. So I texted my dad, and if he answers me during this Zoom, I'll give you the answer. But I don't remember another journal where we did that. So we have some great pieces by Barbara, Joy, and Samantha about various aspects of myofunctional therapy. There's the president's message. Diana Fong is our current president. My dad's the editor. A little memorial for John Mew, who passed away since the last journal was published. And there's a case report on Crozats that I published that is for a patient who was also treated by Narissa. So what's cool about this journal is it's not only looking at what we did from the orthopedic Crozat side, but after the articles written by Barbara, Joy, and Narissa, there's a case report. I'm sorry, Barbara, Joy, and Samantha. There is an actual case report here written by Narissa that goes over what she did for the same patient. So the collaborative aspect of it is really cool. Karen Batt is a PhD who's done all kinds of research on the effects of premolar extraction and retraction. And we've been after her for years to get her to write something. And it finally happened. And having her in this issue too is going to make this definitely one for the history books and one to share with other people. And it's got promotion for the sessions, the AAGO sessions. First session is on Introduction to Exam and Diagnosis. I teach that one in Walnut Creek. Darin Ward teaches the Intro to Crozats. Yuba Lemke teaches the ALF one. Brian Filbert up in Washington teaches more advanced Crozat, mixed dentition treatment. And session 5 is taught fixed appliances, how to use braces, the straight wire appliance. Darin Ward teaches that in Houghton, Michigan. If you've never been there, you got to go up and see him up there. And then finally, Steve Broderson now teaches one on the cranial connection. So if you want to get a hands-on, amazing introduction to cranial osteopathy, stuff that we can do, even though we're not medical doctors or osteopaths, there's things that we can do being licensed to touch in the face and head area. So it's an amazing 6-section course on educational stuff, and I think it's worth looking into. And we have myofunctional therapists come to these as well. It's not just dentists. So that's a little bit about the history of the AAGO, the journal, kind of what the excuse became to be talking about myofunctional therapy and collaborative care at this point. I don't know how much more detail you want, Samantha,
Oh, I
but
think, well, I have some questions, and I would love maybe if there's other teachers like Luba, if you want to jump in and talk about some of the challenges of teaching these modalities, because especially with the ALF, I would love to hear how the kind of the translation of what happens, what you said about John Mew being such a high level philosopher, but then when it comes down to the teaching part of it, it can be there can be this huge gap of these pragmatics of what to look for, how to approach it. And I'm curious because myofunctional therapists love Crozat, love ALF because we're working with providers that really understand function who are actually doing it. And so I would love to hear kind of the philosophy and how ALF might differ if from Crozat, and then how it's translated into some of the practical approach. And I know this is, I'm putting you on the spot, Luba, but I think the German mind can handle it.
So a little warning, I have construction work going on in the house, and at times there's a lot of hammering going up
We
upstairs.
can't hear it thanks to Zoom sound
At
canceling.
the moment, it's not going on. Um, the strongest point that comes to my mind is how the AAGO has changed, because there are so many different approaches there. And we have really learned from in the beginning saying, oh no, you should never do that, it locks up the cranium, to realizing, wow, their showcases look very good. They have really strong, good points. And then I think everyone is a little bit prejudiced in his or her own experience. What has worked very well in my hands might not work so well in somebody else's hands. So it's more about the tolerance of understanding that each approach has its good points. And then for me recently, so I'm in Mexico now, I closed my practice in 2021. I will start teaching the first ALF course in Mexico. So I have to make it a little bit, sometimes in the United States, things can be overcomplicated, there's sometimes so much meat in it that it's drowning the people. And I've seen, because my online course is being taken worldwide, for example, somebody in Romania, she just took the introductory course and really from there developed more things. But what unites us all is the orofacial myology part. And that's why I've become recently very passionate again about it, because I think unless we have more grassroots interest and involvement, these will be mainly mothers of young children, we are missing out we are missing an important part. So that tell me your question again, because I didn't focus in on your question. I apologize.
No, I think it's, well, first of all, I think you are sharing how challenging it is to teach inside of certain parameters. And what you're describing is actually what I wrote about in the art of therapy. In a way, there's an art layer to a craft, and it's the modality of who's in front of you, how you're responding, how these ideas are being born based on what you perceive and what that person is giving you. So the subject, the patient, is inviting, and if you are open to and you have different tools, you're going to be able to approach things differently than somebody who doesn't have the experience and tools. So there's the reason why I am passionate about that is that, you know, Mayor Krieger, actually, who is a cornerstone in sleep medicine, he described the art of therapy in terms of how to approach patients. And he's rooted in science. He was the first person to write a textbook in sleep medicine. And so the principle and practice, but then there's this other layer, which is what I think you're describing, is very challenging to teach, which is how do you help people trust what they know, but give them the tools to pull them out in the moment so that you can work synergistically with people instead of these, step 1, step 2, step 3. And also there's a sense of overwhelm when there's too many things to follow. So I think it's very hard to teach it. So I'm really curious about how you do that.
The German will be a German will be a German. It is one step at a time, eyes on the prize, and one step at a time. And for the German, nobody's allowed to take step 5 if he or she hasn't understood step 1 and step 2. And the way I teach it is we do a lot of wire bending, a lot of hands-on. And when, sometimes I get a lot of questions, can you recommend somebody? So if somebody takes a course, that means they sat through the course, but only when I am with a person and see how he or she uses her hands to bend the wire and what questions that person asks, then I can make a recommendation. And that's so my courses are very linear, which for some people is wonderful, and other people might get bored to death because their mind works differently.
I think it's really fascinating because everyone learns differently, like you said, but the hands-on practical approach and what you're saying, how that person is bending the wire helps inform how you train that person.
Correct.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. Can you also, because not everyone knows the principle of the ALF. A lot of us work with providers who use it. And can you just say what it is so we're clear?
So the wire, the ALF is made of a light wire, the Elchloy yellow, which is flexible. And it is really meant as a supportive device and not as a mechanical device. So in that regard, I think the philosophy of ALF differs from what Crozet people were told, because we don't want to take over, we mainly want to remove obstacles. So because the forces are so extremely light, they are in the physiologic realm. So that's how we engage what lives as natural wisdom in every body. We try to enhance nature rather than override it and saying, okay, first I take everything apart, but then I put it back together and will be much better than before. So I think the philosophy of either removing obstacles or Sorry, the screen just, there's
I thought I'd just throw a picture up there, Yuba, while you're
thank
talking.
you. That's awesome. Yes. So I would say that the ALF, because it is so minimally intrusive, when I remember I only knew ALFs, and then I went to a study club, Brian, in the Philadelphia area, and for the first time I saw a Crozet. And for me, it felt like, wow, that's really heavy and rigid, because I came from another world. And that's a little bit, it worked very well for me because my background is homeopathy. And for somebody else, it might say, no, don't twiddle around here. Airway first, we need to get going. But let's say it really mimics what the tongue should do in an adult functional swallowing in a different way than other appliances do.
Thank you for that. And Brian, are you able to pull up an image of a Crozet and to see kind of the fundamental difference and maybe describe?
And by the way, in the ALF world, we use what we call the Crozet design. We just downsize the wire. The wire will be thinner and will be flexible. That's a big thing for us, because we say everything in the body has mobility. That's what it is about in function. So that's why we don't like to put rigid things in a patient's mouth.
That,
So I've been cleaning out model boxes in my office and kind of trying to make space where I have junk. And I'm coming across lots of older Crozats that my dad used and that I used in the earlier years. And the main wire that goes across the palate or under the tongue in the lower Crozat, which is probably the biggest difference, is what connects the two sides. We use this wire, the red one called a crib, that goes around the molar in the back to hold it on. That was Crozat's really brilliant invention, was adding this yellow wire on the outside next to the crib called a crescent. That's what grabs onto the tooth. So the body wires, the blue one across the middle there, in these older cases I've been looking at are extremely heavy, and I have that same reaction as you, Yuba. I look at those and I'm like, I could not use these now. This is way too much force what I would want to put on there. So the influence of the whole ALF approach and using lighter and lighter wires has definitely been there over many years now, where we use much lighter forces and lighter wires. But the difference, Samantha, is the body wire in the Crozat, it can be designed many different ways, but it generally is used as a arch development force applier. So you expand the body wire 1, 2, or maybe even 3 or 4 millimeters if it's a super light wire, and you put it in and you expect to see some change across the arch. We'll measure from these rests across the molars and from what the green ones we call the lingual arms across there at every appointment, and we'll kind of get a feel for what's changing and apply the forces where they need them. Whereas with the ALF, like Yuba says, it's more kind of almost working by intention, is what they'll say, is you're trying to just remove obstacles to allow the body to sort of hit its potential and reach a maximum of growth and development that is inherent in the body, but it's trying to remove things that are in the way. A Crozat is a little bit more of a direct tooth moving appliance. So we'll add wires on to, we'll add wires onto the appliance wherever it's needed. Say for the front teeth here, you can see some wires behind the lower incisors to align them, or behind the back teeth. It's extremely versatile. Both the Crozat and the ALF are very versatile. If you know how to solder and bend wires, your imagination is the limit. You can just apply the forces where you want them and need them. And that's one of the fun creative things about it, is get the skill of the wire bending and the soldering, and it's just an alphabet that you can write a whole language with.
very different than the orthotropic approach as well, but so synergistic. And so I guess sometimes we have these, when we're teaching myofunctional therapy, when you're not a dentist, the appliance becomes this big kind of talking point. Is it the right?
Yeah.
Is it the wrong? Am I the one to even recommend? And obviously, no, unless you're the dentist treating the case. But the knowledge of how these things work is so important. And sometimes there's an alchemy of the appliance with the family that's willing to undergo that kind of treatment.
Yeah, very well
When a
said.
patient comes in and says, well, I want to use this kind of appliance, I've heard that that's the best appliance. To me, that's like telling the contractor doing your remodel in your home, I really only want you to use Craftsman tools. Those are the best tools, and I've used them all my life. They have great warranty from Sears, and really, I want you to only use that. Don't tell the craftsman how to do the craft. That's what he knows best, is what tools will work in his hands or her hands for the betterment of the patient. So yeah, I mean, there's kind of this tension between learning how appliances work versus learning that it's not about the appliance itself always.
Narissa, I wanted to highlight you and this case report, because I think it's actually if you could unmute yourself, Narissa, introduce yourself. This is Narissa Bogon, practicing myofunctional therapy for how many years now?
Oh, God, I've been studying since 2016, finally formally trained by you 2019, and also through the IAM.
So you have been doing this, and the case report that you did, tell us how you I want to hear a little bit about that, because I think what we want is more therapeutic case reports, This is really important. So from a standpoint of like just how did you put it together? Let's hear about that.
Well, first of all, I just want to say, you guys have been amazing, Samantha, for putting this on, but just know, Barbara Green, and between you, Barbara Green, and Joy Moeller, you always have 100 years experience of this science of work. So that tells me I have a lot to learn, So, and also Brian, thank you for trusting me with a lot of your patients. So in terms of going back to my case report, one, I've had a privilege to really an honor to work with the family of this child. And I don't know how many of you have access to the journal, but Samantha have posted the picture of a child when I started him and all through it now. And what I know, and Samantha, I really love your writing on this publication, because what I did is really some sort of art, right? And doing this, and we know there's not one patient that has the same approach, right? So my kid, this particular kid, I have to have predictability and rhythm for him to be present at that moment. So if you notice, he was sitting still, and when he started being sitting still, he had a trouble of sitting still. And what I really want to show is when you give a semblance or even of safety to a patient, and even for this child, they're more acceptable to whatever you're talking about. So Brian, you talk about construction. I just recently had my house painted. I remember my painter said, I asked them, hey, how long is it gonna take to paint my entire outside of my house? And they talk about 75% of the work is all prep work, right? So in terms of my therapy, I see my patient between 30 to 40 minutes. And I do ask my patients, parents, or whoever's the guardian to be present. And they are engaged with the patient as well. So I spend a lot of time on engaging this young kid to show that he is safe in my presence. Okay. And you notice, Samantha, the art of therapy, right? We're in this rabbit hole, and I'm in a different rabbit hole right now, but I instituted about the polyvagal theory, right? So, if you restore function, if you restore all of that, parent, patient, or even my adult patient could then have a sense of regulation and well-being. So that's the very reason why I spent a lot of time on down regulation and instituted this humming and stillness. Yes, they do exercise in office, but also parents have a supportive exercise at home.
Well, first of all, congratulations, because when
this is my favorite. This is my favorite.
Look at, what you're describing is helping the system get regulated. Yes. So these practices can actually come in and be done, which, by the way, can be the hardest thing with children who are dysregulated. So you need that person who understands that. And by the way, I want to just highlight, this is a very congratulations in this collaborative model of approach is really what we're seeing here. When you talk about the holistic approach, what were the things that you were recommending from a family perspective to help support not just the child, but the family who is supporting the child?
So first thing I always require is for a family to be in the room, at least one, not the whole family if they have siblings. Second is they sign a contract with me that they will participate. And this is one thing that I always tell the parents. Children are never good at listening to the elders, but they never fail to imitate. So start with you, right? And I think I remember Joy Moeller saying, you do actually therapy of the parents first before the child. And I've had a pleasure of working with this case. There are both, it's deeply rewarding for me to see the progress. And what I've seen with Brian, let me tell you, your work, you give my kids such a wide palette, like better than anybody I've seen, better than my palette. But I've seen families in terms of, one of my favorite is really working with Brian's patient.
Yeah.
So I
get
have
that.
to, can I cut in here, Samantha, and say that
Yeah.
I heard from my dad, there have not been myofunctional therapy case presentations in the journal like this. So this is my call to all of you on this Zoom. You need to do it. There are some great myofunctional therapists in this group here. Oh my gosh, look at all of you. So many of your names are so well known. And so for a myofunctional therapist to join AAGO, it costs $225 a year. That's not that much. I mean, if you just get the 4 journal issues every year, that's worth it in itself. But join the AAGO and do what Narissa has done here for the first time, and let's get a myofunctional therapy case in every issue. There's no reason why we couldn't. My dad
Yes.
would love to have that content, and the world needs to see it. But you've got to approach it with kind of an organized mind, and look at this case report that Narissa did, and I'm sure that through your organizations where you've had to do case presentations yourself, you have certain formats. But I think in the near future, it'd be good for a group of you to get together and figure out, okay, here's the best case presentation format for your myofunctional therapy cases, because it's a little bit different from our ortho presentation. We have a case report format for us, and I'll send you that, but I think it should be somewhat adapted to cases that you guys treat. And all the better if you can get the treating doctor to publish what they did along with you and make it a collaborative teamwork thing like this. I hope this is the first
Oh
of
my
many
gosh. This is
coming up.
music to my ears. And I think a lot of therapists too. It's actually, in some ways, it's just kind of not having done it before creates this sense that it's overwhelming, but it really isn't. So I think I'm going to help make that happen. We can get a group going, just an understanding of what goes into a case report so you can write it up. It's actually not that complicated once you
Right.
have the structure.
Brian, I wanna plug it out there too. I have attended the session for introduction for exam and diagnosis and records for all of myofunctional therapy out there, even the any providers. You should attend one for February of next year. I've done that, and it's a wonderful class with Dr. Brian.
Oh, fantastic. Yes.
Mhm.
We have a lot of teachers in the room. I know that. And I just want to highlight all of you who are actually teaching this, whether you're at the AAGO or elsewhere. I mean, the truth of the matter is we all are bringing our voices to this table. You know, Dr. Bronson is here. You're teaching the ALF and have been for decades. Milt, you're coming in and you came into our cadaver lab among many other things. It does really, there's a lot to be said for the collective voices that are advancing how we do it. So I think case reports really solidifies what it looks like. So it's not this nebulous journey. I think that's really helpful. I wanted to hear from Joy Moeller. Hello, Joy.
I invited a patient and his father to come to this meeting. His son is having jaw surgery. He's 26 with a plastic surgeon. And I'm a little concerned about it.
So there's gaps between the preparation for surgery orthodontically and what's going to happen. And
Yeah.
Ryan, you just could talk about that quite clearly, having undergone it yourself.
Yeah.
And do you want to just touch on that? Because it's interesting. It's a
It's a whole other area. This is another area we need a case report on, is how do you blend myofunctional therapy with preparation for surgery? I mean, my biggest mistake in my surgery is not having got started sooner with it. I worked with Joy to do my myofunctional therapy, but it was like it was too late. I won't say it was too little too late. It was still a good amount, but it helped tremendously. And for my patients who are doing surgery, I try to make the referral much sooner now. And but it's a different kind of a treatment than what you're doing with an ALF patient who's a 6-year-old or a teenager who's mouth breathing all the time. I mean, the principles are all the same, but I think there are unique applications that we need to clarify more for everyone.
I agree with you. And I think there's so many layers of it, which are medical, that sometimes the therapist is really left out of that collaborative discussion, even nutrition and, understanding how to prepare it from a, holistic nutritional perspective between protein, vitamins, minerals, getting blood samples. I mean, these are domains that are not in our ability, but we could make a referral as long as we have the right person. So we did a Klatsch on that. I think we're going to talk and do it again. I will be speaking on this at Winds of Change in Chicago, which is going to be a great meeting as well. But
And
that's
we'll also feature the Pulmonauts.
it always comes back to the Pulmonauts. Joy, your story kind of reminds me of Steve Jobs in like the early days in the garage. I do want to highlight the pioneering aspect of what we are doing, but what we need is what you've said, Brian, is really these publications. This is essential. I mean, I'm thrilled that we have that in this journal. I think everyone definitely, if you become a member, you get access, and then you become a part of this dialogue about what other things we all need to know how each other works and how this can support how we grow and build cases.
I first heard of the AAGO because Barbara was supposed to speak, and at the last minute she got pneumonia and asked me to take her place. And that was a long time ago, but I've been a member of the organization ever since, because you parallel the whole concept of myofunctional disorders. You parallel the structural part of it, and we do the function, and the combination of structure and function working together. But absolutely, we need the case studies published in a good journal. And I can't think of a better way to get our publications out there through this organization.
Quick question, Sharon wanted to ask, if you join, can we get access to this journal, or is it too late?
So no, I'll make sure people get it if they join. I texted my dad and I said, how do people get it? Do they have to join? And he said yes. But the good news is joining as a myofunctional therapist is it's a great price compared to joining as a dentist. The $225 is totally worth it. And we have our AAGO meeting coming up this year as well. It's going to be in, Samantha mentioned it, but in Savannah, Georgia. And it's going to be Darin Ward Thursday morning talking about basic Crozat stuff. And he only goes till 10 a.m. And then we all go on this big tour of the area, a plantation, I don't know, all kinds of interesting stuff around Savannah. It's great team building and getting to know each other as a group to do that on the Thursday afternoon. Then Friday is going to be a solid day. Linda and Crystal, I don't know which of you is on here. I saw your name
Linda
on
is
Zoom.
here. Linda Duru is here.
If you're on, Linda, yeah, Linda and Crystal Dean Daru are going to be there for the Friday, and that's going to be an amazing day. If you haven't heard them, you've got to come just to hear them. Saturday, Dania Tamimi wrote the books, thick, big, heavy, dangerous books if you drop them on your toe or something, because they're so dense with information on the radiologic interpretation of CBCTs from many different angles. So if you ever look at a CBCT and you're like, I don't know what I'm looking at here, this day with her on Saturday the 27th is going to be really good, really worthwhile too. So anyway, that's the AAGO.com is our website, and there's the information on the meeting there.
That's great. Listen, I want to say thank you to everyone who's here. Thank you for coming and being a part of this. What I'm going to do is follow up with the recording, but thank you for everyone who is advancing this. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, we are swimming upstream culturally, not just with what's taught in schools, but with how culture is growing our children. And we really need each other. So it's really wonderful that we can have a platform, a community definitely join the AAGO. It's been such a treat, and there's so many resources. And what I think the big takeaway for the myofunctional therapist is that we're going to create a group, right, Narissa, to help write case reports. I think we need just some basic guidance so that this can be a tangible, actionable pathway. Photography is a very big part of that, as you all know. That's why we had Edmund Liam here and Doris talk about photographic documentation. There's a lot of layers to a good case report, the writing and the bullet points, but the summary prognosis. And then, like I said at the beginning, the art of why you did what you did. That's really the interesting part from a human to human perspective, because you'll hear the same case might have 4 different approaches depending on who you talk to from a therapeutic point of view. And I think it's really interesting. So I think we should highlight the journey that you go on. And that's part of what we're doing at the AOMT. I want to say that the case reports that you are forced to write and given as examples are so important, because it's laying the groundwork for publication, which is validation and collaboration. So Brian, thank you. You're such a wonderful speaker. You bring so much information in a very quick approach. Luba, thank you so much for sharing your work. And, is Stephen or Stefan? Let me know if I'm Steve. Yeah. I know you're a cornerstone of the organization. Thank you for being here. And Lori Fry, I want to just point out to you, leader in myofunctional therapy, former president of the IAOM. And, we have a really great community. And so reach out if you have any questions. I also want to know what you like to hear about. So that's kind of my goal here. But again, wonderful to see you. Thank you for Brian taking this time with your family vacation to join. Everyone appreciates it immensely.
Thank you, Samantha, for everything you do. It's amazing.
Well, it's mutually beneficial. I get a high off of it, so it's fun. All right, everyone, have a fantastic weekend. Thanks for all your contributions, and join the AAGO, because the journal issue is amazing. I really mean it. It's a fantastic issue, and there's many more to come. All right, take care, everyone. Have a good.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.